This is another video about adjective clauses. This is the 6th video in the series, and in this video, we'll focus on object when and where, and non-identifying adjective clauses. Those are the ones with commas. For example, I will be happy on April 17th when I complete my course. April 17th is a specific time, so I'm going to use a comma here in this sentence. April 17th is also a time, so I can use when. But I can't always use when for time. Let's talk about that. I do homework around 5 p.m. I finish class then. Okay, this is similar to that example. I'm describing 5 p.m. I'm going to replace my object with a relative pronoun. Okay, so it's an object. It's describing a time. What relative pronoun will I use? I'll use when. And then I should move my relative pronoun to the beginning of my clause when I finish class. And then I'll move it next to the thing I'm describing. I do my homework around 5 p.m. when I finish class. You might notice a comma. Let's talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I do want you to notice that this is objective. Because let's look at the difference here. I do my homework around 5 p.m. I finish class then. Okay, just look at that first sentence there. I do my homework around 5 p.m. I finish class then. Let's look at the second sentence. I did homework around 6 p.m. It was after class. Okay, we see some differences here. I finished class then. It was after class. Then, it. Then is in the object part of my sentence, and it is in the subject part of my sentence. Okay, let's look at our adjective clauses. Usually I do homework around 5 p.m. when I finish class. Last night I did homework at 6 p.m., which was after class. We used when in this sentence and which in this sentence. That's because we only use the word when for object relative time. We don't use the word when for subject relative time. We will use which when it's the subject and when it's the object. I hope that makes sense. See the difference? Okay, where is really similar. I go to Conestoga. I learn about academic writing there. All right, it's a place, so I'll use where. I go to Conestoga, where I learn about academic writing. Okay, but in the next sentence, it's still a place. I go to Conestoga College. It is a large college. However, this time I didn't use the word where. I used the word which. There. It. There is in the object part of the sentence, and it is in the subject part of the sentence. You can use where only for object relative place. You should use it if it's subject relative. I hope you see the difference. I go to Conestoga College where I learn about academic writing. That's because there was an object. I go to Conestoga College, which is a large college. That's because it is the subject. See the difference? Okay, so try combining these sentences. If it's the subject, use which. If it's the object, you can use when or where. All right, I visit the online library database. I find sources there. That one's the object. I need the online library database. It is a good place to find sources. Subject. I'll submit my paper on April 8th. It is the due date. Subject. I'll submit my paper on April 8th. The paper is due on that day. Object. I'll upload my assignment to the Dropbox. Assignments are always submitted there. Object. Okay, so you have to think about if it's the subject or the object and whether it's a place or a time. Think about your answers. These are the answers. I visit the online library database where I find sources. I need the online library database, which is a good place to find sources. This time I used where, this time I used which, this was the object, this was the subject. I'll submit my paper on April 8th, which is the due date. I'll submit my paper on April 8th when the paper is due. This time I used which, this time I used when. This one is the subject, this one is the object. I'll upload my assignment to the Dropbox where assignments are always submitted. I used where, it was the object. Okay, you'll notice there's commas. Again, why are there commas? We've got commas in all these sentences. Well, sometimes our adjective clauses are identifying. We need them to identify the sentence, and sometimes they're not identifying. We don't need them. They're extra information. Let's take a look at these ones. The article which I read was interesting. No commas. I like an author that also teaches at my school. No commas. The place where we study after school is a cafe. No commas. Stress and Sleep, which I read, was interesting. Commas. Professor John, who teaches at UW, has authored several interesting papers. Commas. Coffee Culture, where we study, has a great atmosphere. Commas. All right, let's take a look at our subjects. The article. What article? An author. What author? The place. What place? If I'm not sure, then I need my clause for more information. The article. What article? The article I read. An author. What author? An author that teaches at my school. The place. What place? The place where we study after school. I need these. All right, Stress and Sleep. I know that's a title. Stress and Sleep was interesting. I don't really need to know this part. Professor John has authored several interesting papers. I don't really need to know this part. Coffee Culture has a great atmosphere. I don't really need to know this part. If your subject is really clear, you will probably use commas in your adjective clause. If your subject is not, you probably will not use commas in your adjective clause because you need more information for your sentence to make sense. An identifying clause is making the subject more specific. It tells us which one. In this case, we don't use commas. More specific. The paper was interesting. What paper was interesting? The paper which we read for homework was interesting. Oh, okay. Non-identifying clause is not making the subject more specific. It's giving us extra information. So we're going to use commas. The article called Sleep and Stress was interesting. I won't say what article called Sleep and Stress. I just told you it's the article called Sleep and Stress. It's clear. So anything else that I say is extra information. The article called Sleep and Stress, which we read yesterday. Extra information. I'll use commas. Okay, you can complete the rest of your work page now. We've got a section for identifying adjective clauses, a section for non-identifying adjective clauses, and a section where you can determine which. When I talk about the work page, I mean this work page here, the adjective clause work page. And we're looking at the second page in the adjective clause work page. If you see a citation, don't forget to use it. You can check your answers when you're done.